How to become a high-class scavenger, how to become a professional guinea pig for fun and profit, how to build a buffalo fortune. And now these are only a few of the screwball schemes that our next guest knows about. His newspaper, The Capitalist Reporter, is dedicated to showing the layman how to get rich quick. And here to tell us how is the editor of The Capitalist Reporter, Patrick Garrard. I just want to make a few thousand in the next 3 minutes. Okay?
Well, that's a pretty, that's a job.
Do people say that to you, knowing who you are?
Yeah, they think we're a get-rich-quick magazine, and of course you can't get rich quick, really. But if you keep your eye open for things, things can come along. There was a fellow in our office, in fact, Rich Berman, and he picked up $100,000 worth of old antique newspapers free for the cost of a Hertz truck for a day. And what happened was, he had heard that at Columbia University, they were throwing away old antique newspapers. Now, the point is, libraries all around the country are throwing out old newspapers because they aren't aware how valuable they are, and they're putting them on microfilm because they lack the space to keep them, you see. He rented a Hertz truck. He went over there. He asked, he said, I heard you're throwing away old newspapers. He hauled away the London Times, from about 100 years old, back to the late 1700s. He hauled away old newspapers from New York in the 1850s. Now, after that appeared, a story in the Capitalist Reporter appeared, I heard from people all around the country who went to the local library, said, are you throwing out old newspapers that you're microfilming? And they've hauled away all kinds of papers, and they're still doing it.
Now, how old must a newspaper be before it's valuable? Must it be over 100 years old?
It's valuable depending on what it really is about. For example, one of our readers got a whole batch of old Gold Rush newspapers from Arizona and New Mexico. And again, he went to his local library and said, how's your microfilming coming along? And,
now, this man that you talked about, this Berman man who got the $100,000 worth, what has he done with them? Has he sold them since?
He sold some, and he has an awful lot of newspapers in the apartment. You have to crawl into his apartment through a rabbit warren. But he sold many, and in fact, somebody I know, went to his library and they said, well, sorry, we don't have any yet, but here's some to, And one of those papers reported the funeral of George Washington.
Oh, that's got to be worth a fortune.
And these are here for the taking.
What is that newspaper, that Chicago newspaper that printed Dewey had won the election?
That was the Tribune.
Was that Chicago Tribune? What is that worth, that headline, do you suppose?
That would be worth, I would say, not too much, $30 or $40. But the point is, it's a
not bad for a 10-cent investment, though. How did you become interested? Were you looking to make $1 in a hurry?
Well, obviously, and you start a business, you want to succeed eventually. But I always wanted to have a magazine or a newspaper. And so a time, there came a period in my life when I decided, well, I'm going to do something in this, or forget it. And, okay, what are you going to do? What kind of a magazine are you going to have? Well, I decided I want to have something of really mass general interest. Now, that comes down to basically, sex and money. Mm-hmm. Well, sex, that's...
That'll do it every time.
That left money, and the basic purpose of the Capitalist Reporter is that most financial writing is dull. It'll put you to sleep. It's not terribly interesting, and yet money is exciting. People are running away with it. They're absconding it. They're making it. They're losing it. Money is the story of our times, and so the Capitalist Reporter has stories of all kinds of things. Maybe starting a small business, maybe investing in antiques, oddball things. Serious things, but all tangible things.
But how is it different than other money magazines?
Other money magazines, first of all, they specialize in the stock market. They're very heavily into the stock market. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great way to lose your money, personally.
I agree with you on that. Don't believe in the old market. Yeah, lately it's been looking pretty bad.
And there are things, antiques, for example. It's very hard to lose on.
You can't lose on antiques. You just can't.
Just about can't.
And what does a person do if they want to start a small business, or go into business for himself?
Well, I think
what is needed, really?
Certain things are needed. Number one is motivation. Number two, common sense, obviously. You must have but very important here, you must have an idea of a need in your community that needs to be filled. Now, not just copying the latest fried chicken stand, opening up the 2001st fried chicken stand, because that's not going to work. But you must have an original idea, and willing to work, of course. You must work like a dog until it takes off. But what you don't need, and this is a mistake that people make again and again, they think you need a lot of money, and usually you don't. If you have a simple idea.
Excuse me, where do you go if you want to start a bit? Where do you go for the money? Can you get loans from banks?
You can, but my point is you don't need the money.
I see.
You don't need, for example...
We need something.
A few $100 for many ideas.
What
Obviously,
kind of a business are you talking about?
Well, I'll give you an example. There is a fellow in New York. He's a professional playmate. He plays with kids. Now,
he what?
Plays with kids.
And he gets paid for it?
I'll tell you, last year his business grossed about $200,000.
And he has people working for him.
He has people working for him, but the point is he started this business 4 years ago with about $300.
Now, one of the prerequisites for something like that would be to love children.
You must love kids, but the basic thing is he saw a need, and the purpose here is that parents are working, right?
Gosh, that's
more and more. So they work till 6. Kids get out of school at 3. Between 3 and 6 they get into trouble. Okay? So he offered a service that plays with kids to keep them occupied, keep them out of trouble.
What kind of games and things does he play?
Take them to the park, simple things like that. Now he has a whole stream of trucks and vans to pick them up.
That's incredible.
Kids, a simple idea.
We're going to be back with Patrick Garrard right after this with more of this. Pat, I'm told that people come to you with very interesting inventions. One man invented a car that ran on chicken manure.
Actually...
No, I'm not. This is true. Am I right?
Not quite. Actually, it was a mixture of chicken manure and pig manure. If you want to be
that's different.
Much more
That makes all the
interesting.
difference in the world.
And did it really work?
It really works. There's very good mileage.
Talk about ecology. Good mileage?
Very good mileage. About equal to about 60 miles per gallon. The way it works, this is serious, by the way. In all stories in the Capitalist Reporter, they may seem a little bit odd sometimes, but they're serious. Now, the English inventor, his name is Harold Bate. And he thought up this idea when the Suez Canal was closed in '56 and gasoline was short. He lived in a farm. Well, he took his manure and he lets it sit for a while. Then it's put into a condenser, a methane gas condenser, where the methane gas then goes into a tank, 30-pound tank. When it's into his tank, he has an engine then that runs, of course, on methane gas. Now, the interesting thing is, there are several hundred people in this country who have purchased Harold's car, or engine rather, that runs on chicken manure, chicken and pig manure, because the best mixture is chicken and pig manure. Chicken by itself is not quite so good.
But you have to have $1 million to buy the chickens and the pigs, right? And then get the machine and the...
But Sally, you know, Harold hasn't been idle since he came up with this invention.
Well, where do you buy this stuff? Is there a station for this? Yeah, walk and
Fill it
say,
up,
fill
chicken
it up.
and pig.
After Harold got this, and there are hundreds and hundreds of cars in Britain running on this mixture, methane gas. Now, Harold has gone back to his workshop. And again, I'm serious. And Harold has invented, I have heard, and this has been reported in the London Times and the London Observer, which are certainly believable publications. Harold has invented a bicycle, a perpetual motion bicycle. And the way it works is, on your seat, there's a seat that goes up and down, and there's 2 flywheels on your bicycle seat. And the bumps on the road as you're bicycling along, bump, 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 this turns your wheel.
Turns you on.
What if you don't get a...
No, well, what about a smooth
you
road?
don't?
That's what
That's the
isn't it funny how our heads... What if a smooth...
I've thought of that, and I don't know what Harold does.
right?
Maybe a bit. So it's a nearly perpetual motion.
Now, isn't there another fellow who became the rotten banana baron?
Yes.
No, this is true.
These are true.
Am I right?
You
It's
are.
true.
There's a retired civil servant. He went down to Jamaica for a holiday, and he noticed stacks and stacks of rotting bananas. Now, Jamaica turns out lots of bananas.
Oh, yes.
A third of those bananas, of course, they can't ship because they're going to rot or get, before they reach the States. They were throwing out the bananas. Now, he thought, aha, what can I do with these bananas I can pick up free?
They weren't spoiled. They were just
A little bit.
on the edge, yes.
So he
Dark
thought of a
brown.
way to convert these rotting bananas into banana flour. He picked up the bananas for nothing. Well, now he pays a penny a pound or something like nothing. The growers are happy to give it to him.
Get rid of them.
Right.
Yeah. And did he become wealthy?
He has 3 or 4 plants or factories or whatever that turns out
Flour
banana
mills.
Flour mills, right.
Yes.
He has a chain of health food stores. All started by going down to Jamaica, seeing rotting bananas and saying, what can I do with that need?
Now, how about, and there's another fellow called the Jackrabbit King.
There was again opportunity. Idaho was crawling with jackrabbits. They were eating the farmers' crops. They were jumping all over the place. They were a real menace. To Idaho one day comes an Italian, and he offers to buy up jackrabbits, as many as you can get. Now, the farmers didn't believe him at first. Who wants jackrabbits? But the point is, Italians love to eat jackrabbits, and they love to hunt jackrabbits. Now, this man was paying a very good price to the farmers. It was worth their while to catch them. And
Shipping them to
he
Italy?
was jetting the rabbits over to Italy by the hundreds of thousands. The farmers made lots of money. They cured their rabbit problem to a great extent. This Italian still made lots of money on the deal.
That's incredible. Any others?
Well, we had a story on how to build a buffalo fortune. Yeah. This was investing in buffalo. Now, buffalo, first of all, buffalo meat sells for maybe 3 times the price of beef. There is your your depreciations, and one man I know of invested $1,500 in buffalo, and he pulled out over $4,000 in tax depreciation, in write-offs.
That's wild.
The skin is worth a lot. Now, the problem is, of course, you must know how to handle your buffalo, or they can trample you to death.
Oh, you can take it for a ride in a car that runs on manure. Thank you, Pat, for being here. And thank you, Bob. We'll see you tomorrow. Sally Kellerman and George Kennedy, thank you. Good luck with Lost Horizon, now that you need it. And Tony Orlando, thank you to you. And to you out there, because without you folks, nothing.
Promotional fee paid by National Airlines. National flies the new DC-10s to more Florida cities than any other airline. Automobiles and promotional fee paid by Chevrolet, featuring the 1973 Monte Carlo. It combines American comfort with European handling, indeed building a better way to see the USA. Monte Carlo by Chevrolet. Guest of the Mike Douglas Show, stay at the Independence Mall Holiday Inn.